The blame game has begun. Not long after the final plane left Afghanistan, the U.S. intelligence community leaked details of a phone conversation between President Biden and now former Afghan President Ashraf Ghani. It's the opening salvo in a CYA campaign that's likely to extend into the weeks ahead as government officials run for cover amidst the political fallout. We'll have details in tonight's Hold the Line. Welcome to Hold the Line. I'm Buck Sexton. It was entirely predictable. Biden administration now, after the debacle of the withdrawal from Afghanistan, already acting like this is something to be proud of, to be celebrated, separating, of course, the overall decision to end the war from the means and manner in which they accomplished this, as if strategic retreat versus everyone run for their lives, there's no difference between them, right? Yet here you had Biden yesterday giving an address on this issue where he said that he took responsibility, but also said that he disagrees that the evacuation should have started earlier.
I take responsibility for the decision. Now some say we should have started mass evacuation sooner. And couldn't this have been done in a more orderly manner? I respectfully disagree. Imagine if we'd begun evacuations in June or July, bringing in thousands of American troops and evacuating more than 120,000 people in the middle of a civil war. There still would have been a rush to the airport, a breakdown in confidence and control of the government.
You know, it would have been really bad no matter what he's saying. So he did it as well or as badly as anybody else would have because, you know, that's just the way it is. Taking responsibility. It seems like there's a schizophrenia, a split personality issue here with the administration. On the one hand, they're saying, yeah, we didn't understand how quickly the government was going to fall. On the other hand, they're blaming Trump. On the other hand, they got a lot of hands. They're saying that this was a big success. Well, which one is it? Which one actually should the American people believe is true? I guess they could say there are all these different factors coming together, but ultimately, was this botched or not? Well, if you're going to look at the parts of it that clearly were botched, I mean, the issue of leaving behind 10% of the Americans, at least 10% of the Americans who wanted to get out, the thousands and thousands, it's now believed less than half of SIV applicants who were supposed to get out of the country were able to. So there's certainly blame to go around. That's clear. Oh, but that's right. Biden is going to do what he was expected to do all along, which is find a way to blame Trump for this.
My predecessor had made a deal with the Taliban. When I came into office, we faced a deadline, May 1. The Taliban onslaught was coming. We faced one of two choices. Follow the agreement of the previous administration and extend to have more time for people to get out. Or send in thousands of more troops and escalate the war.
That was the choice? There was no other choice, huh? So then, does Trump get credit for the withdrawal because he set up the timeline, or does Trump only get credit for the messed up way in which the Biden team actually ended this and did not manage to get everybody out of the country that they were supposed to? Depends on who you ask or what the moment is like. Here's Chief of Staff Ron Klain saying, this is White House Chief of Staff, saying that, yeah, this was, Biden did as well as anybody would do. You make an omelet, you got to break a few eggs.
It's easy to second guess, but let's just be clear. America was in this war for 20 years, and I think any effort to unwind that, any effort to bring our troops out, any effort to end our military presence in Afghanistan was going to be filled with heartbreaking scenes and difficulties. And I think the Biden administration has managed that as well as it could be managed under the circumstances we were placed in.
He's saying it's as good as it could have been. He's saying that while you have the Taliban here parading around in vehicles they seized from our supposed Afghan National Security Forces partners, that this was as good as it was going to go. What the whole fiasco wasn't really a fiasco because it would have happened on anybody's watch. That's what I want you to believe. I actually spoke to former President Trump about this earlier in the week, and he laid out in some detail how that's just not true. And there would have been a difference, certainly, in the planning of the evacuations. They would have done it in a way that they would have made sure to get every single American out, which did not happen here. And who knows if it's ever going to happen. Oh, then there's also the predictions about how quickly the Afghan government would fall. The administration has had to admit that there was a misjudgment on that one. But in a leaked transcript of a phone conversation between the now fled former president of Afghanistan, Ashraf Ghani, and Joe Biden, Biden, this was weeks ago, told Ashraf Ghani, president of Afghanistan, that he has a, quote, perception problem. This is from the piece. In much of the call, Biden focused on what he called the Afghan government's perception problem. I need not tell you the perception around the world and in parts of Afghanistan, I believe, is that things are not going well in terms of the fight against the Taliban, Biden said, and there is a need, whether it's true or not, there is a need to project a different picture. Here is Biden telling his Afghan counterpart at the time, the president of Afghanistan, for whatever that was worth, obviously not very much, just like lie to people and say the fight's going better than it is if you have to. We all know it's not going well. So that was not good. That shows you that the Biden administration at some level, Joe Biden himself, was aware of how quickly this whole thing was deteriorating and falling apart. When asked about this, Saki Bomb Saki saying, they're not going to talk about it, not going to address this. Of course.
Was the president in any way pushing a false narrative in that call with the Afghan president?
I think it's pretty clear. Again, I'm not going to go into details of a private conversation, but what we saw over the course of the last few months is a collapse in leadership. And that was happening even before Ghani left the country. What the president has conveyed repeatedly, privately, and publicly is you need to stand up and lead your country.
Yeah, that worked out really well. There are some libs out there, there's some Democrats who are willing to call this out. They just don't have the stomach to continue to spew the lies on behalf of Biden that would be necessary to make this look like anything other than a calamity. Washington Post editorial board, believe it or not, wrote this is a moral disaster, one attributable not to the actions of military and diplomatic personnel in Kabul who have been courageous and professional in the face of deadly dangers rather, but to mistakes, strategic and tactical, by Mr. Biden and his administration. Yeah. Enormous errors made by Biden. Not by other people on his behalf, not his predecessor, not pointing the finger. Joe Biden is a sub-mediocrity who never should have been elevated to the role in which he now finds himself, never should have honestly been vice president, and shouldn't have been in a place to win election after election as a senator from Delaware, but here we are. And if the bad judgment isn't enough for you, then there are also the lies that were told. Here's ABC News' Martha Raddatz saying that the Biden administration did in fact lie before and during the evacuation.
Just on July 8th, the president was saying there's going to be no circumstance where you see people being lifted off the roof of an embassy of the United States from Afghanistan. They were clinging to airplanes in those early days. He was touting the Afghan forces, saying, I trust the capacity of the Afghan military. The president said they were ready, they were prepared for this, but no one was prepared for 11 days for the Taliban to take over. And just about a month ago, he told our George Stephanopoulos that he would get all Americans out. They've gotten 90% of those out. And that 10% right now is scared and still does not know exactly how they're going to get out.
But don't worry, Joe Biden did it as well as it possibly could be done, they want you to believe. It's a victory, except for the bad parts. Those are Trump's fault. Or something. All right, 2 decades of Al-QAEDA was expelled from Afghanistan, or 2 decades after, rather, Al-QAEDA was expelled from Afghanistan. Senior leaders of the terrorist organization appear to have returned. Coming up, senior fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy's Bill Roggio will discuss the return of America's old terror foe. But I want to talk to you about investing in cryptocurrency. Crypto market's hot right now, and everyone wants to get in on the action, but it's not easy to get started. That's where My Digital Money comes in. My Digital Money is an easy-to-use, self-trading crypto IRA platform with concierge-level customer service. It's one of the few U.S.-based cryptocurrency companies that will answer your phone call and help you get started. You know, the market continues to heat up right now in crypto, so this might be the best time in a long time to get into this exciting technology-based investment. When it comes to your money, you deserve a team of dedicated professionals who have your back, speak to you honestly, and treat you like a human, not just a number. Check them out at mydigitalmoney.com. That's mydigitalmoney.com. We'll be right back with more. Hold the line. It's unclear how the Taliban plan to govern Afghanistan. Women in particular face a very uncertain and risky future. the country is at risk of becoming a breeding ground for terrorist organizations. New groups could rise, and old enemies will seek the opportunity to rise again. Just this week, it was reported that one of Osama bin Laden's top deputies has returned to Afghanistan. The New York Post reports Amin-ul-Haq arrived back in his hometown in Nangarhar province, east of Kabul, a day before the U.S. withdrawal from the war-torn country was set to end, and less than 2 weeks after the Taliban seized control. Ul-Haq was the leader of bin Laden's so-called Black Guard when the terror leader was holed up in his Tora Bora hideout 20 years ago. He reportedly helped bin Laden and others flee to Pakistan in December 2001 when U.S. forces were hunting him in the wake of the 9/11 attacks. So will al-Qaeda and other terror groups once again find refuge in Afghanistan? Bill Roggio, senior fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, joins me to discuss. Bill, thanks for being here.
Always a pleasure, Bob. Thanks for having me.
Let's talk just the status, if we can, of terrorist groups in Afghanistan. What do we know right now? And also, if we start adding some parts of neighboring Pakistan into the picture and groups that might find either safe haven or alliance with extremists within Afghanistan, just give us an overview of the picture, the terror picture, for lack of a better way of saying it.
Sure, Buck. And the picture in Afghanistan is that the Taliban has, for these past 20 years, been in cooperation with numerous jihadist groups, including al-Qaeda, but also the milieu or the alphabet soup of jihadist groups that are supported by the Pakistani government. Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-Mohammed, Harkat al-Mujahideen. I could go on and on. These are groups that are sponsored by the Pakistani state to help in Afghanistan, but also to wage jihad in Kashmir against India. So these groups have helped the Taliban over the years. We know, like, for instance, the U.S. State Department years ago designated Harkat al-Mujahideen as a terrorist organization and noted they had training camps inside of Afghanistan. That was in 2015. So as the Taliban was rising to power, these groups have served as its backbone, as their force multiplier. There's groups like the movement in Taliban in Pakistan, which is opposed to the Pakistani state and attacks it. Yet the Pakistani state supports other factions, Taliban factions, including the Afghan Taliban that support the Pakistani Taliban. This is what my colleague Thomas Jocelyn calls the wheel of jihad. It keeps on rolling in the region. So al-Qaeda hasn't returned to Afghanistan, or they're not resurgent. They've been there all the time. Dr. Amin al-Haq's appearance, he is the bin Laden's terror, his bodyguard leader back in the day. His return, his triumphant return, he was taking selfies and signing autographs. We're just beginning to see the mask is coming off. Al-Qaeda's mask is coming off, and we're seeing it in Afghanistan now.
What can you tell us about the situation of ISIS-K? You had, I believe it was Chairman of the JCS, Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Milley, saying that, or actually it wasn't, it was another general. There's so many press conferences. The point being, they think there are a few thousand ISIS-K. I think that, McEnany, or it was one of the other ones, that there are a few thousand ISIS-K fighters they think are in Afghanistan. What's their plan? Are they going to be able to reconcile with the Taliban? Are we really to believe that ISIS-K has such different aims from the Taliban that they're going to be at each other's throats? What do you make of it?
Yeah, so the Islamic State is basically the bastard child of al-Qaeda. They share the same goals: establish a global caliphate, which the Taliban agrees with, by the way. They just have different means, different methods. So the Islamic State wants all the jihadists to recognize their emir as the leader of the faithful. Al-Qaeda has a different, more patient strategy that works with other groups that may not be 100% on board. So the Taliban has a complicated relationship with the Islamic State. They are in opposition because of this. Because of the leadership issue, who is in command of the jihad. But the Taliban is known, and this is in United Nations reports, that the Taliban has used the Islamic State at times as cutouts to give it plausible but deniability for some of the more heinous attacks in Afghanistan. I suspect what we'll see here is that at some point, the Taliban is going to issue an ultimatum to the Islamic State. Either join our ranks, come back, because most of the Islamic State is made up in Afghanistan and Pakistan of former disaffected member of the Afghan and Pakistani Taliban, and even some members of al-Qaeda. So they'll try to bring them back in the fold, and if they don't, they'll crush those who remain. or they'll attempt to crush those who may. Now, that doesn't mean they're a terrorism partner or a counterterrorism partner, just like as General McKenzie has told us. Sometimes the enemy of my enemy is my enemy. We should not be using one terrorist group, the Taliban, that uses suicide tactics to protect us from another terrorist group, the Islamic State, that uses suicide bombs. And
the Haqqani network also looms large in the minds of those of us who have had to deal with the Afghan issue from a security standpoint, stretching back for many years now. Based out of Pakistan, right, just across the border, but very involved in Afghanistan. Give us a sense of both the Haqqani network role as you see this going forward, and then also the Pakistani ISI, their intelligence service that has always had, to call it close ties with the Taliban, maybe understating it.
Sure. The Haqqani network is just it's an integral part of the Taliban. Its leader, Sirajuddin Haqqani, is one of the two deputy emirs of the Taliban. He's also the mastermind behind this offensive that led to the takeover of Afghanistan. That Badri 313, or the Taliban Special Forces unit that you see in Kabul, those are his people. He's trained the Taliban Special Forces. Their role within the Taliban is key. They're closely tied with Al-QAEDA. There's other Taliban groups are as well. The Haqqanis are just the easiest one. They're the one that are most obvious. And then the Haqqanis' ties to the ISI, the Pakistan's Inter-Service Intelligence Directorate, which is its military intelligence service. Yes, I mean, those ties between the Taliban, between the Haqqanis will continue. The ISI also played a role in this. It's no accident when I was watching these Taliban training videos for years that many people discounted, and I was saying, look, they're preparing for something big here. We watched them in new SUVs, brand new uniforms, at training camps with shiny new rifles. And, it was quite obvious where the support has come from. And there's even been reports of ISI and Afghan or Pakistani military officers participating in offensives with the Taliban.
Speaking of shiny new gear, you had a tweet out, Bill. The Biden administration erased Afghan weapons report from federal websites. Now it's time to hide the evidence. Biden officials recently directed federal agencies to scrub their websites of official reports detailing the $82.9 billion in military equipment and training provided to the Afghan National Security Forces since 2001. That doesn't look good, Bill. What's going on here?
Look, the Biden administration just wants all this to disappear. It claimed that they did this for operational security. If that's the case, why was this information on public websites all of these years? The Taliban and anyone else could have grabbed it, and no doubt the ISI and others have. To claim that it's about intelligence is absurd. This is so reporters can't go out and say, wow, exactly just did what did we leave behind here? If that information isn't publicly available, the reporting on this won't happen. And I think that's ultimately the administration's goal. That's been its goal, to get Afghanistan off the front page, get it off the televisions so they could turn to other issues that they actually care about, so that after the debacle in Afghanistan could go down the memory hole.
Bill, appreciate the expertise. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Buck. Have a great day.
As the smoke begins to clear on the calamitous evacuation from Afghanistan, who should be held accountable? Is it the military, the White House, State Department, or all of them? Retired Army Colonel and senior columnist for townhall.com, Kurt Schlichter, names when we come back. Right now, I want to tell you about my friends at Done For You Real Estate. If you've ever thought about investing in real estate, I want you to take me up on this recommendation right now. Visit doneforyoubuck.com, where you can learn more about my friends at Done For You Real Estate. If you haven't checked them out yet, let me make this easy for you. These guys have found a way to make real estate investing straightforward, and their system flat out works. I know because I'm using it. It allows everyday, hardworking Americans like you and me to finally own investment real estate without all the risk and difficulty of doing it on your own. I can't possibly tell you in strong enough terms during this 60-second commercial how important it is you check these guys out. So how about this? If you visit doneforyoubuck.com, at the top of the page is a podcast interview I did with Done For You Real Estate, where you can hear my personal experience with their company in my own words. I'll tell you about it in detail, from picking the city to the house, getting the broker, the loan, even getting a tenant in place so I get cash flow coming to me every month. Visit doneforyoubuck.com, listen to the podcast interview, and give my friends a chance to show you what they can do for you. Kurt Schlichter from townhall.com joins us next. The Biden administration's incompetent exit from Afghanistan has not only led to the death of 13 American soldiers and sailors, but it has displaced millions and made the U.S. look like an unreliable partner to our allies. So just who is going to be held accountable for this mess, if anyone? Kurt Schlichter is a retired Army colonel and senior columnist at townhall.com with me now. Kurt, thanks for being with us. I haven't seen any resignations, except the guy who's a lieutenant colonel who spoke out against the lack of accountability. He's gone. Doesn't seem like anyone else is gone.
No one else is gone. I'm sure they're going to add some more medals to the giant continued on next uniform medals racks that they're wearing. It's astounding to me, Buck, that no one's been fired. But then again, you'd have to have a coherent explanation about what happened. When we saw Biden stagger out yesterday, I was unclear. Let's see, the intelligence community did a great job. Also, nobody saw this coming. This was the greatest evacuation in the history of abject surrenders. And also, it was all Trump's fault. And the military didn't give me bad advice, but I did what the military told me. And this was great. And it was also terrible that Trump made me do all this. I take responsibility. It's all Trump's fault. Look, I'm a trial lawyer, and I admire the chutzpah, as a professional who tries to convince people of things for a living and has to deal with people who aren't particularly bound by, honesty, facts, evidence, rules, etc. I have a lot of professional admiration for it. But as a human being and an American citizen, I find it disgusting, disgraceful, deceitful, and one of the worst things I've ever had the misfortune to see in my 56 years of living.
Here's General Mark Milley. He's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He hasn't stepped down, not going to take some time to write a book or go teach at Naval War College or something. He's still chairman of the JCS, saying that there are, I'll let him say.
Away.
And we're going to learn from this experience as a military. How we got to this moment in Afghanistan will be analyzed and studied for years to come. And we in the military will approach this with humility, transparency, and candor. There are many tactical, operational, and strategic lessons to be learned.
Kurt, what do you think are the tactical, operational, and strategic lessons learned from this mess?
Not to hire guys like Mark Milley. I like that candor, humility, and transparency. Maybe he was in the infantry, so he doesn't know what those big words mean. Or he's just, shoveling us a giant heap and help and horse manure. Look, he is the worst chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff since that position was created. He is a disaster on every level. Early in his career, he was, by all accounts, brave and competent. He was a good battalion commander, according to people who told me, look, Kurt, he was my battalion commander. He was a good battalion commander. But he has proven the Peter principle correct. He is absolutely incompetent. And the only thing he's achieved, Buck, is he's managed to go from merely creating white rage to a rainbow of rage as Americans across the spectrum, across the rainbow, so to speak, are coming together in outrage over the squandering of our troops' lives on a poorly planned, tactically inept, strategically unsound fiasco. So he's got that going for him.
Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, a former four-star general, actually a long time ago, Kurt, I briefed this guy in Iraq. But here he is saying that he's always going to be proud of the part that we played in Afghanistan, he says. Let's hear it.
I will always be proud of the part that we played in this war. As we always do, this department will look back clearly and professionally and learn every lesson that we can. That's our way.
I don't understand. How could they be learning lessons when Joe Biden said that this was the best airlift ever and it was amazing, and Ron Klain, the chief of staff, says it couldn't have been conducted any better? And sorry to the 10% of the Americans, by the way, I'm hearing the numbers actually larger than that, but let's talk about that another day. The 10% of Americans that were left behind despite Biden promising they wouldn't be left behind. So I feel like it's a little confusing here. What lessons are there to be learned when they did such a great job?
Well, Buck, I think you're making the mistake of taking him literally rather than as for his function, which is to support the narrative of his boss. He is a disaster as the Secretary of Defense. he is right about one thing, sort of. We should be very proud of the troops who fought in Afghanistan. They fought bravely and magnificently. They were let down by their leaders. Their leaders were strategically inept. Their tactics were flawed, and they failed. And no one got fired. No one quit. That's the thing that I don't understand, because I grew up being taught by the guys who came out of Vietnam. They were the mid-grade officers who came out of Vietnam, and then they led us to victory in Desert Storm. And one of the lessons they taught us that's apparently been forgotten is that, no generals in Vietnam would stand up and say, Lyndon Johnson, I've got to follow your orders or resign. Those are my choices. I'm going to resign and throw my career away, but it will precipitate a political firestorm, and then you're going to have to maybe recock. But I am going to make my point. That is the one thing you can do as a military leader, is offer your resignation. You can't disobey, but you can say, I'm not going to be a part of this. I'm going to sacrifice my career to force this to a head, because this is just wrong and it'll get people killed. When Milley, who is not in the chain of command, but he is the president's primary military advisor, found out that he was going to have to give up Bagram, instead of going, Roger, sir, 3 bags full, he should have said, here are my stars. I'm not doing this because it's that big a mistake. And at that point, Biden could have gone, wait a minute, hold on. You're really serious about this. Let's sit down and talk, and maybe we can figure out a different plan. Or said, yeah, the hell with you. Get out, send somebody in who'll do it. And then the firestorm would have began, and Biden would have had to justify his plan. Instead, what you got is a guy saluting and driving on. I guess they have this delusion that no one else can do the job that they're doing, that it's so important that they be the guy who's the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, that they've got to go on and do things that they know are ridiculous, rather than jumping on the grenade. Well,
Kurt, I got to ask, are the guys who are still in telling you that they just have lost confidence in the top of the military chain of command?
Absolutely. I asked people on Twitter, where you can follow me at Kurt Schlichter, and I have open DMs. And I said, look, if you're active duty, I won't tell your name, but tell me your story. And it's remarkable. It's not so much the junior enlisted folks, who probably aren't my demographic for Twitter, but it's a lot of mid-level NCOs, senior NCOs, mid-level officers, general officers, who are saying, Kurt, it's as bad as you think and worse. And they're saying, look, I'm getting out. So what we're going to do, Buck, is drive the good ones out. The ones that thrive in this, the ones that aren't combat leaders, but are CRT leaders, the ones who know how to kiss rump, are the ones who are going to stay, because that's an environment where they can succeed. And
we're going to have a lot of expertise in white fragility in the military, thanks to Robin DiAngelo and the reading list there. Colonel Kurt Schlichter, great to have you, sir. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Buck.
Okay, mask mania continues as Pennsylvania becomes the latest state to mandate coverings for all the state's school children, face coverings. The latest on that panic move when we come back, but I want to talk to you about my friends at My Digital Money. Everybody wants to invest in crypto these days, Bitcoin, Ethereum. There are dozens of digital tokens out there, but how do you get started? That's why Colin Plume, the CEO of Noble Gold, created My Digital Money. It's an easy-to-use self-trading crypto IRA platform with concierge-level customer service. They will actually answer your phone call and help you get started. They offer so many incredible things, and the crypto market is heating up right now, so this could be the best time in a long time to get into this exciting technology-based investment. When it comes to your money, you deserve a team of dedicated pros who have your back, speak to you honestly, and treat you like a human, not just a number. Start crypto investing today. Check them out at mydigitalmoney.com. That's mydigitalmoney.com. We'll be right back. With President Biden's chaotic exit out of Afghanistan dominating the news cycle, we can't forget about the fight against government COVID mandates and restrictions. Let's take a look at the latest of the left's efforts to control Americans in tonight's Buck Brief.
Is it safe to say that even if 100% of people were vaccinated, this still would not be, we could still not eradicate this virus?
Well, that depends on what's going on in the rest of the world, because we're not in a vacuum here in the United States. We hope we get the overwhelming majority of people in the rest of the world. I can tell you, if 100% of the people in the world were vaccinated, we wouldn't be having this conversation. There would not be an issue.
Really? Wouldn't even be having the conversation, huh? Because, as you know, you have to get boosters now because the vaccines lose efficacy really quickly, about 6, 7, 8 months, something like that. They're not quite sure yet. But we're supposed to listen to Fauci no matter what. It doesn't matter how many times he's been wrong in the past. Doesn't matter how many of his predictions have not come true. How many of the mandates, how many of the rules haven't actually shown any statistical or significant benefit whatsoever. And so now we're heading into another winter season here where it is very likely there'll be some extreme anti-COVID measures taken of highly dubious efficacy. And now you have, for example, when asked about the University of Washington model that predicted another 100,000 deaths from COVID, Fauci says that, yeah, we could have another 100,000 deaths, but it's preventable if you just listen to him. Watch.
What is going on now is both entirely predictable, but entirely preventable. We have about 80 million people in this country who are eligible to be vaccinated, who are not yet vaccinated. We could turn this around and we could do it efficiently and quickly if we just get those people vaccinated. That's why it's so important now in this crisis that we're in, that people put aside any ideologic, political, or other differences and just get vaccinated. We'll make the vaccinations as easy and convenient for people. We want them to come forward for themselves, for their own health, for those of their family, as well as for the community.
Yeah, take the politics out of it. So let's have Fauci as the spokesperson for that, right? Because somehow he's not political. It's not like he bends the knee to the teachers union right away or does whatever the MSNBC watching audience wants. It's not like he somehow only upsets people who believe in individual rights and freedom and have a reasonable tolerance for risk in society, and never somehow upsets the triple masked, you're never vaccinated enough, you never social distance enough, anxiety-riddled lunatics that are the worshipers of Fauciism. Somehow he never upsets them with anything that he says. And then that also brings us to the latest in the CDC's arsenal of annoying public statements that won't actually do anything to help anyone. Here's the CDC saying that if you're unvaccinated, no Labor Day travel for you. Please don't go anywhere. Stay put.
Should Americans reconsider travel this holiday weekend?
Given where we are with disease transmission right now, we would say that people need to take these risks into their own consideration as they think about traveling. First and foremost, if you are unvaccinated, we would recommend not traveling.
So vaccinated people can travel, and that's fine. Unvaccinated people, if you travel, you're a reckless monster. What about, I'm just wondering, people that have also already had COVID, beat it, have antibodies? Why do they never talk about those people? There are millions, there are tens of millions, maybe over 100 million, 150 million. They never bring it up. They act like it doesn't exist. Why? They wouldn't even disagree with what I'm saying. Those people have protection that is better than the protection you get from the vaccine, but they never bring that up. That seems quite weird, doesn't it? Why don't they say vaccinate unless you've already had COVID, in which case it's really not necessary at all, and you should live your life as a vaccinated person. In fact, better than a vaccinated person in terms of your protection. Last longer, more all-encompassing. No, they want you to bend the knee. They want you to obey. And that's where you get Fauci out there, again, telling you that it's not enough to make you vaccinate. They also want to stick a needle in your kid's arm. Here's what he says.
If you get the imprimatur about the safety and the strong benefit-risk ratio for the children, when that gets established, which I believe it certainly will, by the FDA and the ACIP, I believe that mandating vaccines for children to appear in school is a good idea.
Mandating vaccines for your kids. That's what they're going to do. It's going to be a nationwide push, by the way. Just in time for the winter season, they're going to say, sorry, every kid, you got to get vaccinated or else you're not going to be welcome in school. They're going to do this in every state that does not explicitly bar this, they will do this. And the Department of Education will then try to pressure schools in states where they do prevent this kind of a vaccine mandate from caving and making sure that all the kids get vaccinated. Remember, they're vaccinating children for a disease that is not dangerous to children. Not in any meaningful way statistically dangerous to children. They're making kids get the shot anyway because over-anxious, hyper-cautious adults can't live with the risks that come with being a normal human being in an era where there is a new disease that is now endemic in our society. But no, we're not going to have an honest and adult conversation about this. We're just going to go into more mandates and lockdowns. Here's Governor Wolf saying that there's going to be a statewide school mask mandate in Pennsylvania.
Wearing a mask in school is necessary to keep our children in the classroom and to keep COVID out of that classroom. So to that end, the Department of Health is directing all early learning and child care and K through 12 private and public schools across the country, across the state, to require students and staff to wear masks when they're indoors.
Everyone's got a mask up in schools now. This is a big reversal for him, by the way, caving to the pressure. And he even says he's not sure why are people even upset? What's the big deal? Mask up your kids, mask up yourself in school. What's the big deal? Even though there's no science that suggests this is going to save anyone from anything. Is masking even like annoying to you? Here's what he says.
I'm not sure why there's pushback on this. I mean, yeah, it is something that everybody has to do. If a few people do it and not everybody, it doesn't really work. But if we don't do this, where does that leave us? Well, again, just look around. School events are canceled. School is canceled. Students are sent home to quarantine. Parents have to stay home away from work to take care of those kids while they're in quarantine. I mean, there are a whole lot of bad things that happen that we see every day. Just look around. And to say that doesn't happen, I mean, that's just closing your eyes to reality.
This guy is living in a fantasy, but this is what we're up against, folks. The majority of Americans are ashamed of President Biden's botched Afghanistan withdrawal. Hear how one Florida diner is sticking up for the U.S. troops that died in Kabul under Biden's watch in tonight's Quick Hits. But first, if you're like me, you got to start your day with a healthy dose of caffeine, and that means some Black Rifle coffee. And this is the best coffee you'll get anywhere. It's from a veteran-owned company. It serves premium coffee to people who love America. And Black Rifle coffee supports veteran law enforcement and first responder causes. This summer, Black Rifle invites you to enjoy your coffee wherever you drink it, wherever it takes you. Whether you're brewing the perfect cup of pour-over or you're drinking a can of 300 on your next backcountry mission, Black Rifle Coffee is there to fuel your way wherever the summer takes you. They import their beans from all over the world, and they're always researching and experimenting with new roasting methods and coffee origins. Purchase at blackriflecoffee.com/buck and use code BUCK at checkout for 20% off your purchase and your first coffee club order. Fuel your summer with America's coffee, Black Rifle Coffee. Quick hits are coming up next. Stay with us. Michael Moore is Biden's biggest cheerleader, and one California high school AP teacher admits communist indoctrination of students. Yep. Let's get into it all in tonight's Quick Hits. Let's start off with the guy who was so well depicted when he's eating multiple large sandwiches and covered in food in the Team America movie. If you haven't seen that, Michael Moore is depicted in it, I think, quite accurately. But here he is trying to say that Joe Biden is a great blessing, and that, in fact, what he has done here in Afghanistan is phenomenal. Watch.
And I have been completely surprised and feeling that we're all blessed to have Joe Biden in the White House in these last months, his first year in office, all the things that he's done, not just in standing bravely and never walking it back like a politician, and especially a Democratic politician would. They would get afraid of the Republicans and the right wing telling them that he was a coward and they were withdrawing from Afghanistan. And Democrats have such a history of walking things back like this. He wouldn't walk it back.
Mm-hmm. See how they're focusing again on the overall decision. Trump put us on a timeline. It was clear there was a bipartisan push for ending the war in Afghanistan. The problem has not been that Biden ended the war. The problem has been the unbelievable chaos in the withdrawal process that clearly involved a lot of poor analysis, lack of planning, and just a general run for the exits mentality when it did not have to be that way. But Michael Moore is there, of course, to clean up on aisle 5, pardon me, for Joe Biden. Had a Biden moment there. Florida diner bans Biden backers. This was an interesting one. This is a Florida diner, okay, an actual place that serves food, not one individual diner. If you voted for and continue to support and stand behind the worthless, inept, and corrupt administration currently inhabiting the White House that is complicit in the death of our servicemen and women in Afghanistan, Please take your business elsewhere. God bless America and God bless our soldiers. Look, we're used to seeing this kind of politicization from Democrats of everyday life, so it's maybe a little bit unusual to see somebody on the Republican side saying, you know what, we didn't even want your business if you vote for Biden. I don't think that she actually expects anyone's not going to go in and have some French fries and a burger based on who they vote for, but she's making a statement. She's a business owner, and they decided they were going to say something about it. I think it gives you a sense of, at least in some places in the country, how people feel about the mess that is going on right now with the Biden administration. A California high school's AP government teacher admits indoctrinating kids commie style. Here you go.
I have an Antifa flag on my wall, and a student complained about that, and he said it made him feel uncomfortable. Well, this is meant to make fascists feel uncomfortable, so if you feel uncomfortable, I don't really know what to tell you. Like, maybe you shouldn't be aligning with the values that this is antithetical to. I have a huge political spectrum in my room on the wall. So they take an ideology quiz in their Unit 4, and I put their face, or they have to give me a picture of themselves, and I put it on the wall where they are. Every year, they get further and further left. Extreme times breed extreme ideologies, right? There is a reason why Generation Z, these kids, are becoming further and further left. I have 180 days to turn them into revolutionaries.
How do you do that? How do you
scare the out of them? We have to convince people that this is what we actually need.
That video from Project Veritas, James O'Keefe's outfit, showing that there are certainly some out there, some public school teachers and private school teachers too, who are trying to actively indoctrinate your kids, and they're really going for it. They're not even holding back these days. Accountability for this White House would be a whole lot more serious. There might be some if we didn't have a press corps that was in Biden's pocket, but we know that's not the case. This is what happens when reporters are shooed out of the Oval Office when they're trying to find out some stuff about Afghanistan. Watch.
talk about now?
Thank you all very much.
All right, we have been watching President Biden there in the Oval Office host his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelensky.
Yeah. That's it for tonight's Hold the Line. The No Spin News with Bill O'Reilly is up next. Shields high.